Tenacious Leaders, women who have faced storms, have kept standing, and found purpose in persistence. There's a quote that I love that says, Tenacity is not about holding on when you're tired. It's about starting again when you thought you were finished. And that's exactly who these women are. They're leaders who rise, rebuild, and remind us what's possible when we pivot, don't give up, and continue to build. I'm Teresa Palacios Smith, and this is Women Who Lead, a space where stories of courage, authenticity, and leadership come alive. So grab your cafecito and settle in. I'm excited to introduce our wonderful guest today as we celebrate several things this month. But for sure, I want to mention that it is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So, as we look at these wonderful women, I really want to introduce, they're all involved in their organizations and their companies. And our first guest is Wanda Gertin, who's the CEO of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Ally Real Estate. Wanda's leadership is grounded in authenticity and courage. She's built her success by showing that strength and compassion can coexist, leading a team that mirrors her unwavering values. Welcome, Carol, to the show. I'm really excited to have you here. Our next is we have Kim G. Stevens, broker and chief visionary, and I love your title for
Mhm.
Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Pocono Real Estate. And Kim is known for her bold ideas, fearless leadership, and ability to empower others to think bigger and lead better. And she's a visionary who turns challenges into innovation. Welcome, Kim. And finally, Carol Stover, who is the Vice President for the East Coast region for Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Florida Realty. And Carol's calm strength and steadfast leadership have inspired countless professionals. She leads with empathy, integrity, and a deep commitment to helping others grow. So I'm excited to have you as well, Carol, on the show. And I will tell you, Carol, Ray Mesa was the person that said, I want you to have Carol on this show. So it's an honor to have all of you today. And when that comes from the top, you can tell that he is sincere in the way that he feels about you. So, the first question that I always ask everyone that I'm curious to know, because our industry, and I just came from several conferences out in the West Coast, and I'm always interested in knowing, how did you get into real estate? Because we're all real estate leaders. And, and was it by, chance or by choice? And I'll start with you, Wanda.
Yeah, so for me, it was definitely by chance. I got into real estate. I was a single mom. I was young and trying to figure out my direction in life and trying to build a career. And it was my first big girl job, I guess you'd say. And I actually started out at a Century 21 in South Carolina. That's where I'm originally from. And I started out in property management. So I didn't think that it was going to be for me. I'm like, yeah, this is not the career that I expected to have. And but a position became available in our sales department. And so after some years there, when I took that position, I knew that that's where I wanted to be. And now I'm in Louisiana with Berkshire Hathaway and been with the company now about 7 years or so. And yeah, I really enjoy it. So, but it was totally by accident.
I love it. And tell me a little bit about your company. How many agents do you have? And
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, so we were actually Berkshire Hathaway's largest startup ever. Berkshire doesn't usually do the startups. They had about 18 agents when I joined. They launched in 2017, and I joined 6 months after they launched, so July of 2018. And we have grown the company. We have over 130 agents, and we have opened an office. We are in Northwest Louisiana. So right there in the corner of the state, we're right, super close to Texas and Arkansas. And we've opened up a second office in Central Louisiana in the Alexandria area. So
Well,
two offices, 130 something agents.
and they don't. And congratulations, because we typically don't bring in startups because we want companies that are established and are ready to, jump jump off right as they
Sure.
start. So it was great to have you. Obviously, the tenacity of your leaders shows and was, proven when they did join our brand. How about you, Kim?
Yeah, so I think the stars just aligned. It was maybe like a little bit of a fluke, but my husband, my ex-husband and I had a commercial building. My mom did mortgages. My dad was doing new home construction design. And we were like, hey, we should open a real estate company. My husband was in construction as well. And so that's what we did. We started with just the four of us, my mom, my dad, myself, and then my brother joined us. So we were a startup. But we were also a Century 21 because we knew that brand. My uncle had a firm up in the Adirondacks. And so that's how we started. Real quick, we did a lot of mergers and acquisitions and grew to be a pretty big firm for our area, 13 offices and 165 agents. And then 2007 hit, which I'll share about that a little later. And then I ended up joining Berkshire Hathaway in 2018 and have never looked back.
And your son has joined.
Oh my gosh. Yes, everybody knows Max. I was telling Wanda, I'm really, really known as Max's mom, not Kim Stevens.
No, it's so funny because I know you have a full family business, so it was in your blood already. So I think that's so interesting because your parents were actually already in construction and new
Yes,
build
exactly.
and
Yeah. So all
now
the
you
all
are
the pieces were there.
yes to create that. I think that's exciting. Carol, how about you?
Thank you, Teresa. So definitely it was not a calling. At 17 and a half, I graduated high school in 3 years, and I actually joined the Army and was stationed in Germany. And that experience taught me, oh my gosh, discipline, resilience, and how to adapt really quick to change. So I started my real estate career in 1985 with Coldwell Banker in Baltimore, Washington. And I was super fortunate to have a company president who is a really strong mentor. So no, real estate was not my calling at first, but much like the Army, it has stretched me in ways that have made me stronger, and it has stretched me in ways that certainly shaped who I am today.
Well, thank you again for the service, as I know we got Veterans Day coming up as well, and that's the one thing that I definitely wanted to make sure that we mention. But Carol, tell us about the company itself because you have several offices that you operate and a lot of agents as well.
Happy to.
Yeah.
So Berkshire Hathaway Florida Realty has 30 offices and over 1,200 sales professionals. Our company is broken down into three regions, and I'm very fortunate to be the vice president of the East Coast region. So in that, I have 11 branch offices that are led by some really dynamic, amazing managing brokers who make my job super simple because they're such great leaders. Within the East Coast region, we have approximately 450 sales professionals.
Amazing. A lot to cover and a lot of agents that you are inspiring and brokers as well, because we know they are also the heartbeat of the organization. So defining what tenacity is, one of the things that I look at is when life or business just knocks you down, what's the first thought that runs through your mind that gets you back up? Because I know right now, and we have been hit by one thing after another in the last year and two in our industry that really has given us some blows. And Kim, I'll go to you first.
My first thing is this is happening for me, not to me. And maybe I just can't see why yet. I just have an orientation of that way of looking at life. And so that's my first thing. When I get scared or something hits me, it's like, okay, I know this is happening for me. And I just have to find out what that is or why that is.
Oh, that's a great way to look at things. I like that. Not to me, but for me. And so, what is it that's going to happen that's going to help me one way or the other, right? I like that. Wanda, how about you?
Yeah, so I definitely agree with everything Kim said. That's the best attitude to have anytime you face, things personally or issues in business. I like to think about what can I control in whatever I'm facing, right? Because I think a lot of times we just give too much to the problems that we have no control over anyway. right? So, yeah, thinking about what do I have control over in this, and just trying to keep a positive attitude, practicing gratitude daily for all the things makes a huge difference as well.
Control the controllables. That's
Right.
all, the best advice. I love that. Carol,
When I get knocked down, my first thought is this is a test of perseverance, right? You lean into your training, you maintain a positive mindset. There's when the ground shifts, tenacity is choosing about getting back up and keeping moving. You got to go forward.
I think that's amazing. I know with the experience that you've had in the Army, I'm sure that's prepared you so well for our industry because there are so many times that you don't know what's going to happen, how it's going to affect things. And we always prepare for the worst. And, like we did with the NAR settlement, and things actually have turned out okay, right? So I think that's a great way to run business. One of the things that makes us all leaders, is the fact that things happen, that often scare us. And Wanda, you kind of alluded to that. Sometimes you get scared. What is one a time that you were so scared, but when it you faced it, it really turned out to be the right move. So something that scared you that you had to make as a decision, but
Sure.
then realized that, oh my God, this was the best thing that could have happened.
Yeah, I think for me, accepting the position at Berkshire Hathaway was a big deal because they were a startup. The Century 21 that I started my career at, and I got married and relocated, our family relocated to Louisiana. So I knew I wanted to be at another real estate company. But I was super nervous about taking that role with a startup. We have two broker owners who are fabulous, and they had these grand ideas of how big everything was going to be. And, but as you know, most startups fail, right? Most new businesses within the first 5 years. And that made me very, very nervous, but it's been fabulous. And I've been able to grow a lot in my role, in my leadership, and I've learned so much throughout the entire process. But my company that I was with before was in business from the 70s and had been around a long time.
Wow.
And there was a lot of security and stability there. And they were number two in the market. And so coming into a startup, that had me nervous for sure.
And look how great it's turned out.
Mhm.
That's incredible. I think also startups help you realize all the things that you can do different. Because
Yes.
sometimes when you have been in business 70 years, you're stuck or you do the things the same way. And I think that gives you the opportunity to do it the way you really wanted to do it, right?
Hmm.
Um, Kim, how about you?
Well, I had 2007 and 2008 were just, I don't know, felt like my whole world was collapsing, honestly, between what was happening in the real estate market. We couldn't really close offices or cut expenses fast enough, honestly. It was very financially devastating. Um, Personally, my marriage was on the rocks. My kids were struggling. My commercial real estate was in foreclosure. I'm a real estate broker with some of my commercial real estate in foreclosure. And then to top it off, I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer.
Mm.
So, yeah, which actually on Sunday will be 18 years that I'm cancer free. But that was just a really hard time. And honestly, I've said many times before that I believe that getting cancer actually saved my life because I think I was like living by other people's standards, maybe, and it really caused me to have to look inside myself and see what I really wanted and what direction I wanted to go, take care of myself. Of course, I had to, physically take care of myself and surgeries and chemo and all the things. But it was a turning point for me. It really was. And it was really I needed to follow my own path and do things my own way. And so it was a It was a big thing for me. That I don't regret and that I feel proud of coming through. I mean, honestly, my financial advice, everybody was saying, you got to quit. You need to quit, just stop, cut your losses. I was in debt over my eyeballs and I couldn't do it. It just something inside of me was just, I have to go on. I know it doesn't seem like the smartest thing, but it's what I have to do. And that's why I say, to thine own self be true. I had to do it. And one step at a time, I turned the ship around.
Oh my God. I mean, definition for sure of tenacity and courage, Kim. And we were, 2007 and 2008, for those that are not familiar with our real estate industry, we went through the collapse of the mortgage, industry. And I'm sure with new construction too, because there was no new construction that was able to survive that I know of. So many foreclosures, and that you lost your commercial side is and that you're still standing is amazing, Kim. And thank you for sharing that personal story about breast cancer, which again is our months. It's so important for us to remember how important it is for all of us to, check and to always keep that as an important part of our health. And to continue to make sure that we make all of us aware of the importance as well. Carol, how about you?
Okay, scary but right decision. Definitely enlisting in the Army at 17 was my first big scary decision right out the bat. It turned out to be the right decision for me. It shaped my independence, it increased my level of self-confidence. In real estate, one of those moments came in 1989 when, after 5 years of being a Coldwell banker in Washington, D.C., I moved to Northern Florida and I had to start my real estate career over. I was in an area where I did not know the market, I did not know anybody. And you just get up every day, you go forward. So even the big changes, even the scary ones, they all lead to growth. If you just trust your principles and surround yourself with good people, you're going to get through it.
So, what took you you know, from the DC area to where you said you were in DC?
Was in the DC area with
Area.
Coldwell Banker.
Yes, to Florida. What
My
brought you there?
husband retired and he's from
Okay.
Florida or was from
Okay.
Florida. So
And
that's
so
how I ended up here.
And that is something that is very challenging. Number one, if you are in real estate, everyone knows you in your market. Your sphere of influence is the biggest part of our business that we talk about is who do you know? And those are your first clients. And to totally move and get into the real estate industry back I can imagine that was really, really scary. But the fact that you got into the army and how that experience, we'll talk about that experience in a minute. It just is also daunting for me. So everyone sees that their life, like how their highlight reel, right? And people always look at us and all of you that as something that, my God, their life was so easy, or they had it made, or, but what they don't know is the downtimes, like that you talked about, Kim. So, tell me a little bit more about how you were able to push through the setbacks that almost broke you.
Yeah, so I think again it was just trying to get centered in, one of the definitions of the tenacious or tenacity is being steadfast. And I think for me, just really holding true to what felt right for me, what felt, listen, a lot of it is a God thing for me, what feels true and aligned for me and taking small steps and just kind of trusting my gut, moving one small step at a time in a direction that felt true for me. And I love this Joseph Campbell says this, he talks about the hero's journey, and that felt like my call, like, are you going to keep doing things the same way, or are you going to change? And I definitely changed. And, once I started moving in another direction and like following my own path, trusting my own gut, the universe kind of conspires to help you, and then people show up, and circumstances show up, and money shows up. And that was my experience, that when I kind of went that way, that doors started to open for me. And so, like, there were a million little things that happened, and big, but I think it was just the tenacity, or to be able to be steadfast and true to what was true for me, and doing that no matter what everybody else said, and just staying on that path. And it really just moved me from, here to way over here in a pretty short amount of time. I mean, considering where I was.
Amazing. And I know that had to be so difficult for everyone because I know you were saying you were going through a divorce. Your marriage was on the rocks, your children, and now they are, we got to talk about the fact that are all your children in the business or just
No, just Max. My other
Max?
son lives in Charlotte, North Carolina. But Max, he didn't want to get in the business. He said, he lived in Montana. He was a ski bum. He said, I'm never coming home, and I'm never getting in the real estate business. So what did he do? He came home and he got in the real estate business. And that's been a blessing
And that
beyond.
has been because I know he's soared alongside you because of obviously
Absolutely.
everything that you taught
He's his
him. And
own guy. He's his own
yes,
guy. Yeah.
yeah, and your background, but it
Yeah.
comes from you.
Oh.
It comes from you. Wanda, how about you?
Yeah, so for me, when I started with Berkshire Hathaway, I started out as their marketing director. And I have corporate relocation is in my background. I know Teresa, you and I have talked about that before because you have that background as well. And so I was doing a lot of our marketing, working to build our corporate relocation business, and we grew pretty quick, and they promoted me to CEO, and I didn't know what the heck I was doing. It was like, okay, like Google, what does a CEO even do? And I had never really led anything before or been in a role where I was, leading other people, right? And that was very intimidating for me. And I had a lot of issues finding the right people and just hiring, in general. And I think I'm kind of with Kim on that. Like, I had to really lean into my intuition and try to find people where the roles that I had, that they had strengths that fit those roles, right? And putting people in the right positions for them. We've had individuals that we've hired, and it wasn't necessarily that they weren't a good employee, but the role that they were doing at the company wasn't suited for their personality type, and where they were going to be the most fulfilled. And so hiring has been a struggle. But now I've got a great team. It just took the time and learning through failure. I've done a lot of that, ladies. Lots of learning through failure.
I love it. Well, that's would be so daunting to be in a role that you never, had been in. And how do you even get started? I think that's very courageous of you to take it on and realize, okay, I'm going to make mistakes,
Mhm.
but I'm also going to learn from those mistakes. And now you've got it down pat.
That's right.
So one of the things that I always want to know is what do you do when things are in chaos? And right now we are in a situation where things are changing, right? You've got AI coming into the picture. You've got social media, being a big part of what people have to do. There's a lot of agents. The average age of agents today is 63. And so you look at that and you're seeing meltdowns. I've seen meltdowns of agents that feel like I can't do this anymore. The business has changed. So, what do you do, number one, to help your agents stay grounded and yourself stay grounded to keep, and for you to be able to keep moving forward, and for those agents that you also work with to say, hey, it's going to be okay. Let's keep moving forward. And Carol, I'll go to you first.
Sure, thank you. You're right, Teresa. Absolutely. Change is a constant thing in our industry. We've got NAR settlements, new compensation rules, form changes, seems like daily. I try to blend the lessons that I've learned from the leaders that I've had. You've got to pause and reflect, invite people to the table. You need to be open and transparent about what's going on. You need to get the buy-in, the collaboration. We all know that change is uncomfortable, but we have to remember it's survivable. Change is survivable. So in real estate, when the industry shifts, I stay grounded and focused by focusing on what I can control. And Wanda mentioned that earlier. There's no reason to panic. Don't panic. You pause and you act with intention. And people look for those traits in a leader. They're definitely tenacious.
It's so true, and you are the person that if you're freaked out, they're like, okay, now I know I need to freak out too. So you got to stay calm, even though inside you might be going, oh my God, what am I going to do? Wanda, how about you? Because I know that you talked about controlling those controllables to begin with,
Exactly.
but what are other things that might help you keep grounded and keep your team moving forward?
Yeah, so for sure, focusing on what we can control. I'd also say, being proactive instead of reactive when we can see that things are heading our way. Our brokerage is structured as high value and high support to all of our agents. So, we've got the right people in the right positions to lead our agents through that. So, like my director of training, Misty Ingersoll, has been in the business for 25 plus years. She serves on local and state levels. When the settlement happened, as soon as we caught wind of what was going on, I mean, we were training way in advance of every other company in our market, right? So we try to do that with everything. We've been training on AI as soon as we caught wind that it was a thing, so it's important for us to stay knowledgeable and educated. We send all of our staff to conferences to learn, continue to grow. We've never arrived. We encourage our agents to do the same thing, but that way we can pour into each other with all of that knowledge that we get, and we can be proactive while doing so. The better prepared we are, just the better everyone will feel and confident when changes do happen.
I think that's so, so true. Kim, how about you?
I think, mindset is a really big thing. And I guess I would say that I really try to lead by example and walk the walk. We talk a lot about mindset here and just wellness of the whole person. So, we have wellness circles and we do a lot of mindset stuff and visioning and all of that. So we really try to keep everybody's head on right, because if your head is not on right, everything else is going to go sideways. So self-care, we talk about those kind of things a lot. As far as what we do, like with with COVID or the NAR settlement, is just keep dialogues open. We meet a lot and talk about, what does this look like? I'm not a particularly fearful person, or I've worked very hard at not operating by fear. It doesn't help, and I can't think clearly. So we try to stay very level-headed and train and talk and mindset, because from that place is where answers come and, resources come and the right direction comes. If I'm all over the place and I'm afraid and, oh, this guy says this and then, I don't know how you run a business that way. I have to stay very centered. And part of that is just keeping wellness, self-care, and, my own alignment with my own true north to know which way to go and how to lead the group.
Well, I mean, it sounds like to me too, you've already faced fear, right?
Mhm.
With all of the, all the things that have happened. So, gosh, this is easy, right? I can handle this. I think is what I'm getting
Yeah, it's not that I don't feel fearful. It's that I try not to make decisions based on
based
fear.
on it. Yeah.
That's really what it is. I do get scared, but I try not to make decisions based on that.
Well, one of the things that I always want to know is mentors and role models because I know that we all have had to look up to someone or someone has really played a pivotal role in our lives. And this is the chance that you get to let them know how grateful you are. So, what lesson have you learned or advice that you have received or mentor that has taught you grit? Not by what they said, but perhaps how they lived. I'll go back to you on this one, Kim.
One of my, I'm a big fan of Gino Blafari. And honestly, when I went out for my fit meeting into to Irvine, one of the things that resonated with me is when Gino shared a personal story of what it was like for him during the 2007, 2008. And I really respected that level of transparency and honesty from a leader. And, he's a mindset guy. Often what he talks about is taking care of himself and morning routines and his meds and, visioning. I've soaked up every bit of everything that he's taught, and I implement it. And I also loved his thoughts on leadership, and it really has made me a better leader. I realize how important it is the way I lead, the demeanor I have, my decision making. When everyone else is running around scared, I can't be that person. And so Gino's been a big one for me.
Oh, I know that he'll love hearing that. He has for me as well. And I could not agree with you more, especially his, when he did those first, introductions of our business, he talked about the effects on him and how he got started and things that
Mhm.
happened that he had to do to overcome.
Yeah.
Wanda, how about you?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, like I was telling y'all, I think failure in itself has been a big mentor for me just because, I've had to learn to be okay with it because we're going to make mistakes, but then to learn to pivot very quickly, right? But then I'd also say the owners of our company for seeing something in me that I didn't see in myself. I was so nervous when they offered me the position, and I'm just very, very thankful that they saw that in me because I would have never imagined 7 years ago, looking at now, all the things that I've learned and for teaching me that leadership isn't about having all the answers. You learn through it. You learn by leading other people. And yeah, so I would say they're huge mentors to me.
Tell me their names.
Leighton and Adam. Yeah.
Perfect. I just want to make sure everyone knows Leighton and Adam for the role that they have played in your life. And Carol?
Well, I have been blessed with mentors throughout every stage of my career. And, I've learned that leadership isn't about just showing up. You have to walk the walk, talk the talk. And Ray Mesa, our president and CEO, he is a true model of this. He's transparent, he's approachable, and he is certainly and steady in the turbulent times. And I really try to follow his example. His authenticity inspires way more than pretending to have all the answers. So his leadership, his consistency, his character, they've taught me to show up in the storm.
Well, Ray, I couldn't agree. That's another wonderful leader. Ray tomorrow is actually going to be our guest speaker at a Berkshire Hathaway Energy event because he's going to be sharing his immigrant story, his family story, because that's how much I respect Ray. I've known him for so many years and his steadfast leadership. He's one of those individuals that knows what he needs to do to get a company running efficiently, effectively, and also making his agents aware how much he cares about them and how they can also increase their opportunity for growth and wealth creation through the practices that he actually implements himself. So I think what a great example of a great mentor as well. So, personal fuel. What's one daily habit? Kim, you kind of talked a little bit about it because you talked about Gino's daily habits and how important they are, his meditation, and how that kind of also gave you a little bit of fuel. What is your mindset hacked that you refuse to give up because it's your secret weapon?
Yeah, well, praying and meditating are big things for me. So I do that every day. But I write down 10 things that I'm grateful for the day before. I try not to do the same things over and over again. I try to pick new things. I think it's just so important. Just what I focus on is where I'm going to go. My attention is where I'm going to go. And so I'm very conscientious about paying attention to the good things and what I'm grateful for. I have a grateful heart. And then the other piece of that is I write down 10, I guess you would call them maybe goals, but I write them as being thankful in advance. So I'm thankful for the thing I actually want to try to manifest or that I'm visioning. I'm thankful in advance because I know it's out here in the universe somewhere, and it's coming to me. So those are my practices.
Beautiful, beautiful. Wanda, how about you?
Yeah, and Kim, I gotta say, I love the thankful in advance. I'll have to try that one. I'm a big gratitude person. So every morning when I get up, and of course I'm outside of my normal routine right now, I'm at a conference, but I have to get outside within like the first 10 to 15 minutes of me getting up. I think that makes a huge difference for my day. Something about getting outside, getting fresh air. So I walk my dog every morning, and that's my outside time, and I leave my phone in the house and I pray and I think about all the things that I'm grateful for. And that for me just gets me started for my day. And then evenings for me too. I mean, ladies, y'all know this industry is hard and people want us all the time. They're pulling at us all the time. So if anybody watches this and like, if you could do anything for yourself, if your family's all at home and you're not worried about anybody that's going to have an emergency, like put the phone away and like just chill out a minute in the evenings. I'm also like Kim was talking about the self-care. I think women, especially in this industry, like it's so important. And so I like to read in the evenings. I try not to watch TV before I go to bed. Movement throughout the day, like lots of non-negotiables for me because we got to take care of ourselves. It's not, if not, it'll catch up to you quick
It
with this work.
really will. And it's so hard because you mentioned this. You're at a conference right now.
Hmm.
And I came from 10 days where I was gone. And I found myself struggling to do my daily habits that are so critical because you're pulled out of your normal routine because you got to be at a meeting at 7 a.m. and I mean, and you're in a different time zone. So it's so critical for us to continue those, regular, routines that really help us stay grounded. And Wanda, I'm like you. I love it. I love the fact that you go outside, walk your dog, and that's part of your everyday because it does make you feel like you love the earth, right? You're breathing
Yes.
and turning that phone off if you can.
Mhm.
That's really so critical.
Get the
Um,
sunshine and the fresh air. You need it.
yes. Carol, how about you?
Well, it sounds like Wanda and I start our days in the same manner. So I'm up at 5 a.m. and I'm out there with my dog and I'm doing my walk. And my daily non-negotiable is gratitude. And it fuels me to stay tenacious. It really does. So every morning I am naming at least three things I am thankful for. And the gratitude shifts my focus from, scarcity more towards opportunity. So even in those tough times, naming those three things every morning that I'm thankful for, it shifts my mindset and keeps me moving forward. And it really sets the tone for the day. And then in the evening, I want to be able to reflect back on my day and say, who did I help today? Did I accomplish? Did I add something to their day? So.
And I love the fact that the gratitude does, and all of you do that. And I think that is definitely something that I've seen in almost every leader that I talk to. It's the thing that takes that negative into a positive, right? Because we all have things that we have to say we're grateful for every day, and there are things that happen that we can make that into a positive moment. So again, thank you for sharing that as well. And I love the fact that you end your day, Carol, with things that are positive too, like who was I able to help? And one of the things that I used to love to do when I was working with agents was that when they said something to me that was great, I would write it down. Or if they send me a card, because when those bad days happen where you feel like, oh my God, I'm not doing anything right or everything's wrong, I would take those cards out and it would just fuel me, right? It would fuel my day. So advice for those that, are future leaders or agents or owners, what do you say when and I had this question from an audience member this week in my first conference, when you feel like quitting, because she felt like quitting. She's in real estate. She's been in real estate for a while and she's had a tough, tough year. So what do you do when you feel like quitting? And what's your unfiltered advice? Because it is a tough business right now. Depending on where you are in the country, things are slower than normal. We are not sure what's happening. There's the economy, there's the government breakdown, there's the tariffs, there's everything that's revolving around you. Kim.
I think too, for me, it's really kind of the same answer is like really like looking inside and figuring out what's true or right for you. One of the like little techniques that I use, well, there's two things. One for me is I ask myself, how am I going to feel about myself after this? So, in other words, if I quit, how am I going to feel about myself afterwards? Or if I keep going, how am I going to feel about myself afterwards? It's not always it's not always the keep going that is the right answer. Honestly, I've had to close offices or businesses. Sometimes that is the right answer. So, but I think it's, how am I going to feel about myself afterwards? What am I going to feel best about myself having done? Keeping it open when, I shouldn't, or quitting or whatever that is. And a technique that I use for that is, I love the phrase enlightenment tastes of freedom and the truth will set you free. So I try to use my body as a navigation system. And I picture those two decisions, am I going to do this or am I going to do that? One will usually feel constricted or small or scarcity or, and one usually makes me feel a little more open or free. And so I try to follow that. Sometimes if my mind is confused, my body knows the truth. And so that shackles on or shackles off. It can help me navigate to my true north and what's the best decision for me. And so that's what I guide people.
Oh, wow. I love that. That's incredible advice. Um, how about you, Wanda?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned is never to make a permanent decision based off of emotions, right? Because the emotions are temporary and our feelings are valid, but they're not factual. Like there are feelings. So I just have to like redirect myself and try to help others redirect themselves too. And like Kim said, sometimes the best decision is to stop with something, right? I mean, I fully agree with that, but I think we have to align ourselves with what are the facts in this situation and where am I maybe altering those facts some with my emotions, right? And really thinking about things, praying about things, and figuring out what's best to do. I also loved that question, Kim, about how am I going to feel about myself after this? Like that's a good thing to kind of put it in perspective for you to see because we're going to have challenges no matter what we do in our life. If it's real estate, a different career. But I've learned with some agents too that have come to us that have maybe thought about getting out of the business. Things are so crazy and it's so hard that they just haven't given themselves a fair opportunity to succeed sometimes. And we've been able to help them turn it around. And then sometimes it's definitely not for everybody. So you just have to sit down and look at the facts, but never make permanent decisions based off of something temporary or something that you don't have control over. Always focus back on what do I have within my control? Can I turn this around?
Perfect, perfect. And so true. There's Gino would always say, for us, because there are times where you're so dramatically caught in it that you cannot see. So step away from it, for a minute, and I love what you said, Kim, too, about would I, is this just some emotion I'm feeling right now, or is there something that I really need to take action on? And if I do need to take action on it, wait 24 hours. Wait 24 hours before you send that email when you're pissed off. Wait 24 hours before you make that call that you're mad at because the person really upset you. Wait 24 hours. And then if you feel that way, then you got to look and say, okay, now I know what I need to do, right? And you're right, not this real estate business is not for everyone. But I always tell people, what is it that you loved about getting into real estate? Is that still core to you, right? And also, there are different roles in real estate that you might not have looked at because you might want to lead others, or maybe you like relocation, or maybe there are so many roles that are available to you that you might want to look at that might fit your cup, that might fill that you already fell in love with. And so we've been able to help people with our company by doing that. And we had one person, an agent that came to me, and she's still in Relo. And I said, well, have you ever thought about Relo? Because you're so good at what you do. And she's like, no. And sure enough, she is still head of the department and loving every moment of it, fulfilling her cup. How about you, Carol?
Advice for future leaders. If you feel like quitting, don't ever quit on a bad day. Don't ever quit on a bad day. Your perseverance leads to maturity and your completeness. Hard times are never wasted. They help shape us, right? And the women and the men who endure those hard lessons, they're the ones who become the leaders. So take a breath, reach out for support, but never give up. Growth is uncomfortable, we know that, but it's temporary, right? Growth is temporary. Take that deep breath, call someone you trust, because you are tougher than you think.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. And another conference speaker that I saw, and I cannot remember his name right now, but he was Latino, wanted to be an astronaut. And A Million Miles Away is the name of the movie that features his life. And he was our keynote speaker. And he talked about the fact that he had been wanting to be an astronaut since he was a young little boy. And the thing that kept him North Star is like he would look up and he said, I just really, really want to do. And he applied over and over, and they said no. And he'd received 9 letters, but they'd always say, but you can apply next year. And the 10th letter he got, he was like, I give up. I can't do this. And his wife said, I didn't know I married a quitter.
Mm.
I didn't know I married a quitter. And he said, well, wait a minute. And so by the 12th time, he became an astronaut. So 12 times someone said no to you. Can you imagine? And it was in a year. So it took 12 years for him to become an astronaut, but he did it. So it's an amazing story of perseverance. So I love, Carol, all of you, what you've said, because I think it's really important. Don't quit in a bad day. Just think about it, right? Think about it. There's people that have continued to do work, and then like Gino's story, he was ready to quit, and then it became his best year ever when one deal came after another deal after another deal. From the very time he said, "Oh, I'm going to quit because once I sell this, I'm quit," and it worked out to be one of the best things he'd ever done. All right, as we roll, we're almost done. I always love to know a favorite book, a podcast, or a quote that you can recommend others that lights you when your tank feels empty. So I'll start with you, Carol.
Well, in my case, whether you're a teenager learning to live on your own in a foreign country, or you're a leader making tough calls in business, to me, resilience is everything. Tenacity is everything. Every stumble that we encounter is part of your own personal climb. And it's rising again. That's what builds your tenacity. So continue to rise. And as far as books, I've always loved John Gordon. John Gordon and Ken Blanchard, they're the basics. They're probably all the ones that we first learned when we were getting into leadership, but they've always stayed with me. And John Gordon's Positive Pledge, if you've never looked at that, Google John Gordon, the Positive Pledge. It is in my office, it is in my home. My grandchildren have it. It is truly something that will keep you grounded.
You know what? I've not heard that mentioned. So the positive pledge,
John Gordon, the Positive Pledge.
is
Look
it
it
a
up.
big, is it a easy read or?
Easy read. It's
Okay.
he's got like 18 things that you would look at it and you're gonna say, I'm gonna do this every day. If I do this every day, my day is gonna be wonderful.
That's a new one for me. I'm definitely going to pick that one up. Thank you for mentioning that. Wanda, how about you?
Yeah, so I'm an avid reader, right? So I have lots of like books and different things that I could recommend. But when we think kind of like about mindset and when you're just in a place and like you need something uplifting, and I actually wrote this down for you guys, but you know Matthew McConaughey, I love him, and he wrote Green Lights. You know, it's kind of like his documentary, and he's such a fabulous writer. And I actually read the book and I listened to it on Audible, which is fabulous, by the way, because it's him reading it. And you gotta love his voice. So I wanted to read this for you guys. He said, persist, pivot, or concede. It's your choice every time. And again, that's so true. That goes back to the focusing on the controllables and like those are your options that you have. And you know, and him also, he'll lean into his faith and but you know, thinking about something like that helps when you're stuck. But and then just some other recommendations just to throw this out there. But I love anything by Patrick Lencioni. He wrote like the five dysfunctions of a team, the advantage. He's got lots of books, and I try to do book reads quarterly with my team. And so, yeah, anything by him is also great, but love that documentary by Matthew McConaughey.
Oh, I'm definitely going to have to watch it because I'm a big fan as
And I
well.
would listen to it because, like I
Yes.
said, it's his voice. So check
Oh,
it out
I
on
love it.
Audible.
I love
Yeah.
it. Definitely. Thank you for that. And rounding off the final would be Kim.
Yeah, so I would ditto what Carol says about John Gordon, and just I've done the Energy Bus. I've done this as a book for the whole year. His stuff is great for any leader for your team. So I ditto that. But one of my favorite quotes is that Marianne Williamson, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate, but that we are powerful beyond measure. It really helps me to stand in the best light that I can and to hold myself to a high standard. So I love that quote. As far as books, I love by Martha Beck. That's where I took my life coach certification from. I love Steering by Starlight. I love Finding Your Own North Star. And then one that I go to all the time is Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh.
Wow. Amazing. Give me the quote again.
Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate, but that we are powerful beyond measure. It goes on from there, but it's kind of like don't play small, that our light gives other people permission to be their best as well. So just by playing small, you're not helping anybody by not owning your whole light and who you are and your magnificence and your power.
That is beautiful. I love that quote. So I'm definitely going to take that one. I really, really, the books, Dan Forsman, who is the first person I worked, was a huge fan, and the Energy Bus was one of our first reads. So again, I want to thank all of you for joining me today. What an inspiring and empowering conversation we've all had. And I really appreciate your authenticity, the fact that you've been vulnerable and you've been able to share some of your deepest thoughts and also been able to motivate others with your advice. So thank you again for sharing us and reminding us that leadership is often forged in the moments no one sees, right? When persistence and heart carry us forward. So I love this quote that I'm going to leave you with. Tenacity is the heartbeat of leadership. It's what turns strength into impact and perseverance into legacy. And that is definitely what I see in each one of you. I want to thank our audience for tuning in today. I really appreciate that you have, been here with us and that you continue to support this phenomenal show, and also that it will become a podcast in 2 weeks, and you're able to download it on Apple or Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. And don't forget that in 2 weeks, we're going to join another show, our Diversity Matters segment, who will feature Brian On, who is the newest installed president of the Asian Real Estate Association of America. And he's going to talk about his vision and what the organization is going to be doing and what his leadership looks like in action. So I can't wait to have Brian on. And then mark your calendars for November 12th. As our year kind of comes to a close, we're going to be also featuring our next Women Who Lead episode, featuring another group of extraordinary women who are going to be changing the face of leadership. So until then, I really again want to thank all of you. Keep leading with courage, authenticity, and heart. And remember, never underestimate the power of women with tenacity and a cafecito in hand. So I'm Teresa Palacios Smith, and this has been Women Who Lead. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.